Hello, hello, hello. How is everyone doing? It's Wednesday, December 20th. We're getting into the holiday weekend. Welcome to Brewing Justice. For those who are just joining for the first time, Brewing Justice is where me and other court watchers get together and discuss current survivor cases. And I'm so excited about this one because today I'm bringing on one of my best friends, Melanie. Melanie is an incredible court watcher. She's an incredible friend. She has been with Eat Predators since the beginning. Since the beginning. Which one was it? I think it was the second Brian Friedman protest that we met. And she is an incredible ally. And I am so, so, so happy to share her knowledge with this community. And so I'm just so excited to be here today. It's been a long time coming. We've obviously had Jacob on here twice. And, figuring out with Melanie with schedule, et cetera, has been a little bit of back and forth. But now she's here in the studio and I'm so excited. I'm so excited. How is everyone doing? How is everyone doing? Yeah, with Jacob, 100%. Jacob's amazing. And if you haven't watched any of the prior Brewing Justice episodes, I highly, highly recommend it. Jacob has been covering the Scientology civil suits that have been currently happening. And another side note is when we are physically showing up, which we did last week, for members only, they get to do a Q&A with us on our way to the courthouse. So if you are a member, please look out for notifications, etc., because we will be doing live Q&As every time we are showing up to the courthouse. I have yet to show up for Britney Spears, but I will be in the future, Melanie and I. So catch us on one of the members only lives and we'll do a Q&A on the way there. But it's so nice to see you. Yeah, the scarf. It's a little bit cold in the studio. It's been raining in Los Angeles, which is honestly rare. It's very rare, but I'm loving it. I'm honestly loving it. So nice to see everyone here. Yesterday was a very kind of scary, but yet very comforting conversation with all of you. And I just want to say again, thank you so much for being there. And building this community is just magical in a way. And I do want to remind everybody here that, this channel is all about creating a community for, in my opinion, I don't want to like go too grand with this, but it is like a survivor's, revolution in its own way. And all of us coming together and banding together and sharing our stories and supporting one another is, I think, the first step towards, not only educating the world, but also scaring the prey. So I just want to say thank you so much for being here. And you guys make this whole journey just very special. And I'm very grateful for every single person here. So for those who haven't liked this video yet, I just want to remind you, please like this video, subscribe, share, etc., because I'm trying to encourage others to understand that it's very rare that there is survivor-centric narratives on YouTube, and sadly, there's not many. And it's so important to create the survivor-centric media, survivor-centric narratives, because most of the time it's being told by everyone else and it's not being told from a survivor's perspective. And I think the best experts when it comes to these things are from survivors. So please boost this channel. And, once again, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. So before we go into everything today, obviously we're covering Britney Spears. And I'm so excited to be doing this with Melanie. But before we go into that, I just want to remind everyone here that Brewing Justice, the entire, Eat Predators channel, we don't have any sponsors for many different reasons. First of all, it's actually very hard to get sponsors to come on board for survivors. And, that's a sad world we're living in. And that's why I've protested multiple different places, reminding certain grocery stores or brands, etc., that survivors are your customers. We are your customers. And it's time for us to be properly represented. And also, we need more survivor visibility in general. We need visibility. We need the world to see us and to respect us and to support us. So we don't have any sponsors for this channel. And so therefore, this is completely community built. And, I want to just go through a few of the ways that you can support this channel, make it sustainable. I've been sitting here Monday through Friday, and, it is a lot of work, and I'm so grateful to be here with the community. And at the same time, I'm a survivor, so sometimes it's very triggering. So making this sustainable and boosting this is so important. And so let's go into the ways that you can support this channel. First and foremost, we have a sale. We have a sale going on the eatpredators website. Merch is currently, I think, 15% off. So if you know a survivor or an ally, and the whole point of the merch is to spread awareness and put positive affirmations out there into the world when it comes to survivors. And I love hearing every individual, from allies to survivors, telling me their stories when it comes to, having conversations with strangers and spreading the awareness. So this really matters. And so we have a 15% off sale going on, and we got t-shirts. There's a few things that will not be in the shop anymore starting January 1st. And it's the ePredators Academy t-shirt, which is a little homage to the Zoe 101, Pacific Coast Academy t-shirts that I used to wear when I was on Zoe 101. I changed it, made it a shark fin instead of a wave. So that will be gone January 1st. And so will the, allegedly, in my opinion, that will no longer be there on January 1st. And I think Alleged Dad is also not going to be there January 1st. We got the new Brewing Justice mugs, and I love that because personally, I wanted to make a show that was a little bit earlier in the day, kind of like a coffee type show. And so hence Brewing Justice. So obviously the coffee is not the only thing brewing here today. Justice is also brewing. And we have the tote bags. And, one of my favorite additions to the shop is the hoodie. It's the Power to Survivors hoodie. And, again, that is the main slogan when it comes to ePredators, is power to survivors, giving the power back to survivors and empowering them. We have the crew neck and the t-shirt as well. We got stickers. And so if you were in a video game and you wanted to, put a sticker somewhere in the video game to spread awareness, that's a really great way to do it. Or on a great bulletin board at your campus, etc. So this is all about spreading the awareness for survivors, and we got the 15% off sale going on right now. So again, thank you to everyone who's already purchased something and is spreading awareness. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Next, we have the Patreon. And the Patreon is one of the first ways that I started to reach out to this community for support and building. And the Patreon's really starting to build out now. We have multiple different tiers. We have the YouTube tiers as well for the members. And I just want to say that the only difference really is when it comes to the healing circle. That's for the Patreon members, and the healing circle is going to be once a month, where I have an expert, a specialist, do, for example, somatic breath exercises, etc., for survivors, so that we can balance these energies and we're not just dealing with the heavy, triggering topics. And so there's that. I do want to add that one of the main differences is the ePredators zine. The zine is coming out this spring, well, next year, but we're almost at next year. Springtime zine, and it's going to be a full physical zine where we're highlighting survivors' stories, and we're highlighting survivors' lives, and we're also educating the public about survivor issues, etc. And this is one of my favorite projects that I'm currently doing. And so a lot of the Patreon, funds are going towards this zine that we're creating. And it's time for survivors to take the driver's seat when it comes to these narratives. And so this is a huge project. And so I'm, so grateful for everybody who's been supporting it. And so if you're part of the $22 tier, you get the digital zine, and then the other tier afterwards, you get the physical one. So I'm really, really excited about this. And then also for all of the members from YouTube to Patreon, we are doing Social Change Now, which I'm really excited to just again scream this on top of every rooftop. We're going through the ways in which we can uniquely show up for social change. And there is a web. There are so many different roles when it comes to how we show up. And there's not just one way. And so if someone's out there going, I can't do, let's say what I'm doing today. I can't do that. What can I do? This workbook, this workshop is a way for you to figure out the ways in which you can show up. And it's been a beautiful way to connect with the community here, and a reminder that all of the tiers after the dinner party up give you access to the Discord, and that community is so, so wonderful. And so, yeah, I really can't praise this enough. And then also on the other Fridays, we're doing Hard Feelings. Let me pull this up with Jeanette McCurdy. It's her podcast. We're listening to it with one another and, talking about our hard feelings, the ways in which we deal with them personally. And then also we're doing our own exercises where we're doing our own voice memos. And if we want to share it with one another, we can. If not, we can at least discuss the ways in which these voice memos have changed our lives, if they have in any way. So that's just my little spiel, just reminding this community that this is built because of all of you here. And even if you're just here watching this video, liking it, sharing it, etc., I just want to say thank you so, so much for being here. So with that said, I'll be introducing Melanie. And once again, to remind everyone, Melanie has been court watching the Britney Spears case when it comes to her abusive conservatorship. And she's been watching and been part of the Free Britney movement. And she has so much knowledge to share with this community. And I do want to remind everyone once again, justice for Britney. Britney has been freed. Thank goodness. And now there are other steps, and the steps are justice. And so Melanie is going to give us the whole rundown on the whole thing, and I'm really, really happy to introduce her. So let's actually put the emotes of brewing justice in the chat and some hearts, and welcome Melanie. No worries. Melanie, there she is. Oh wait, you're still muted. Hold on. You're still muted.
Yes. Hey.
Melanie.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. This has been a long time coming, honestly.
Yes, definitely. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for hosting this platform for so many people. It's important work, and I'm honored to be a part of it.
Oh, thank you so much, Melanie. Honestly, you're part of the inspiration because you have been court watching when it comes to Britney Spears for how long? How long have you been doing this?
I started first showing up at the courthouse at the beginning of 2021. I think March 2021 was my first time going to the courthouse, but I didn't really start going in and court reporting until after she was freed. I went in because a lot of people kind of went back to their lives, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to see this through and make sure we get justice, and realized that I could show up and tell people what happened inside there. So
that's amazing, because that's really important to note for everybody here is that, yeah, the Free Britney movement was a huge part of Britney Spears, getting freed from the conservatorship, but she is still dealing with the aftermath of it. And Obviously with Eat Predators, we talk a lot about the institutions that, cover up and are also sometimes and most of the time complicit in crimes, etc. And obviously TriStar doesn't have a clean slate there when it comes to their involvement with Britney Spears, and TriStar isn't even currently being sued by Britney Spears. Is that correct? Like TriStar is not in the middle of a lawsuit.
They, I believe, have other lawsuits, but no, Britney Spears has not sued anybody. Not from Britney Spears. However, they are being deposed in court, so they are having to answer to Britney's lawyer.
Like Lou Taylor being deposed?
Yes, Lou Taylor, Robin Greenhill, and one other like head principal of TriStar Sports and Entertainment has been subpoenaed, and they will have to do the depositions 30 days before the trial.
When is the trial date? Just one more time. What are we looking at?
There's a couple trials. There's a trial on 5/13, so May 13th,
Uh-huh.
and then there'll be another trial on June 3rd.
Oh,
Sure,
okay.
yeah. And they're covering two different things. So like the June 3rd one will be more about the fees,
Uh-huh.
but the May one will cover like the financials. They're also going to cover um Brittany being held against her will at a facility.
Horrible.
They're going to be covering like them spying on her, and they'll be covering
All in this book.
financial being taken advantage of her financially.
It's horrible. So I think the first question I want, to ask you is what got you to introduce, because I know this is our first episode together and I want to properly introduce you to this community. What got you involved in the Free Britney movement?
I have always been an advocate for artists. Like every project, everything I've ever been really passionate about has always been creating safe spaces for artists, for freedom of expression. And at the time that I first found out about Britney Spears and the conservatorship, I was working on a project that was about artist rights. So I was really interested in examples of the corruption in the music industry. And through
Oh,
my
sorry,
research, it was
please.
just like
Bless you.
more and
Thanks.
more obvious how the courts played a role in this corruption, as well as like the music management companies.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Right.
just kind of happened very naturally, where like instead of watching like Netflix or something, I was constantly reading court documents with other influencers like That's Price Witness and Free Britney LA was doing a lot of coverage and live streams at the time. And I saw them protesting, and I've always been in the event industry, and I can be a very loud, passionate person. So I was like, oh, I want to show up there and make some noise. And that's
Amazing.
how I'd met all my best friends, really, was showing up there and getting loud about the injustice.
Were you in a different? So obviously, the Free Britney movement was really bustling, obviously, in Los Angeles, in California. Were you in Los Angeles at the time?
No, I was in New York at the time, and I found out about it just on social media. Like we were hashtag Free Britney. So I was just like small account online, just resharing things in the live streams early on. I went in March to fly to LA to go to the protest. Flew back to New York, and then when Britney Spears spoke up in court after that and confirmed a lot of our suspicions and investigations, I was like, I'm buying a one-way ticket to LA. Like, we need to get her out of this. So, like, yeah.
Well, you're like, I'm going there and I'm actually never coming back. I'm just
I was
going
like, I'm
straight there.
getting a one-way.
Yeah, I'm
Like, we'll
doing a
figure it
one
out
way.
later.
So were you there the day that she was freed? Like, I know there was a whole rally happening outside of the courthouses. What was that like? What was that energy like?
It was powerful energy. We had been having a lot of protests leading up to the termination rally
Mhm.
that had just been growing and growing and growing. Britney Spears speaking up really was the catalyst for people to even take the movement more seriously. That is why, like, we say like Britney Spears freed herself. We just created an atmosphere for her to know that she's not alone and that it's a safe space and that we're listening,
Right.
which is so important that you're doing this work, Alexa, because that is, the kind
Thanks.
of environment that can make people stand up and free themselves.
Mhm.
So, yeah, there
Thank
was
you.
a lot of like more press and more focus on what we had been doing since she's spoken up. And then the termination rally was like the biggest protest we had. Hundreds of people were there. I like people who had been investigating and doing a lot of their research, they were in the courtroom. And at that point, my role was in the megaphone. I would lead the marches
Yeah.
and I led a march of
Let's put the megaphones
hundreds
in the
of
chat.
people. And we marched until she was free. Well, I went in like multiple rounds. We closed down the street.
Yeah.
There was press everywhere. We called them the plastic people. The press showed up, the plastic people
The plastic
interviewing
people.
us.
Press the
And
press.
it was very
Press
powerful.
the
And,
press.
people don't fully understand, that previously lawyers like James Spears's former lawyer went on a press tour saying that no one ever gets out of a conservatorship. And there's 1.3 million people in our country right now that are in conservatorship. So Britney Spears getting out of this conservatorship set a precedent for our country.
Right.
So when they announced that the conservatorship was terminated, it was this
Mhm.
breakthrough legally.
That was
So it
something I
was very
actually
emotional.
wanted to mention is something that I also personally came up against when I started to, advocate for other survivors and protest, etc., was this stigma that is around celebrities. And I know people don't necessarily want to talk about this a lot, but there is actually a lot of stigma around celebrities when it comes to social justice, social change. And it's hard for obviously somebody who is not a celebrity, not a public figure, to understand if their pain is, equivalent to theirs. Like, oh, you have this nice, beautiful house, you have a huge bank account, and all of these things do, obviously we should take note of that. But at the same time, every human being's pain and liberation and justice matters. And it's sad to see, when it comes to celebrities, there is still that stigma around where it's like, well, the privilege, does this really matter for most of us? Like, what does this human being have to really complain about? Yada yada yada. And what I really loved about the Free Britney movement, and I must say, from my own personal experience, when I was watching the Free Britney, there was a doc that came out, and that was the first time I heard actually about this conservatorship. And I remember watching the doc and being like, is this really an issue? Like, because I was so uneducated about it. I didn't know what conservatorships were. I didn't understand how bad it was. I didn't understand, how much needed to change. And I, kind of was like, oh, there's so many issues in the world. Like, why is this one, getting all this, press all of a sudden, et cetera? Is it because Britney Spears is obviously a pop star? And the more I started to look into it, I was like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Sometimes celebrities, for example, can bring awareness, sadly, because this world sometimes doesn't even listen to these issues until it happens to a privileged individual. And instead of dissing the privileged individual, we should actually be dissing the systems that don't care about these issues until a privileged individual is talking about them. And sadly, the victim blaming is part of that, where the victim blaming goes obviously towards the person who is in a privileged situation, who is dealing with something that is unfair and unjust. And instead of changing the system, we diss the survivor. And it's a really, really sad stigma that I saw when it came to Britney Spears specifically. And then after Britney Spears became free, there were these bills that passed through that actually helped individuals when it came to abusive conservatorships, et cetera. And I want to touch on that. So when it came to the Free Britney movement, how did it start to arch over into just specifically conservatorship abuse?
We were focused on conservatorship abuse on a large scale very early on. I attribute that to the influencers that, gave me my information early on, which was, like I said, like BJ, That's Prize Witness, and Free Britney LA. Like, they had spent a long time talking about conservatorship law in general, and how bizarre even the notion of stripping someone of their civil constitutional liberties. Because if people don't know, conservatorships, especially the one that Britney Spears was in, which is the strictest kind of conservatorship, which, as her lawyer points out, is the wrong type of conservatorship that she was put in. It basically takes away your medical rights, your financial rights, and your legal rights. So you're not allowed to hire your own lawyer. If your medical rights are given up, they can force medication on you, force you into a facility. And financially, you don't control your assets. You cannot sign documents yourself. And in Brittany's case, to be put in a work situation, it constitutes as trafficking. Now, us learning about Britney Spears's conservatorship shined a light on conservatorships in general and the probate court system, which the probate court system was also responsible for slavery when slavery was legalized. So we immediately started drawing these conclusions about conservatorships in general. And it was kind of for the group initially, we talked a lot about disability rights. There were disability rights advocates who have been screaming about this situation for years. I know it was because of Britney Spears that they were able to be platformed, and they were actually a part of the bill that was passed.
What is
So
that bill? What can you educate the community about that bill?
Sure. So there was multiple legislation that was passed through the Senate. The first thing that was changed in the state of California, and we hope to see it echo in the rest of the country, was that now conservatees are able to hire their own lawyer. So that was the first legal action that was taken. After that, the other bill was basically allowed. It made it so that if you're going to if you're going to petition somebody to go get put into a conservatorship, which you would need a doctor, a judge, and a lawyer. That's all you would need, right? But now they need to prove to that judge that they've exhausted every other avenue before somebody can enter into a conservatorship. And it also makes it easier for people to get out of a conservatorship.
Wow, that is incredible. I mean, what are the numbers again? How many people are currently in a conservatorship?
1.3 million people in America.
1.3 million people.
Yeah.
And would you say that there is a chance that a lot of them or most of them are abusive?
Yes. I mean, I'm an abolitionist. I think that all
Nice.
conservatorships are abusive.
Yes.
I don't believe in conservatorships as a solution. There are other things that can be put in place. And mind you, those things could also be abused. So that's why
Right.
I find that court watching could be a solution if there was, like, maybe a some type of organization that we had that wasn't motivated by, like, basically there are things in place right now, like even those laws, right? But
Mhm.
the thing is with Britney's case is not only did they, like, put her in a conservatorship that, like, I find conservatorships even, like, legally were abusive, and we
Mm.
did change those laws, but they also put her in the wrong type of conservatorship, and there were conflicts of interest. Like, they didn't actually follow the laws. So, like, some people
Right.
are like,
Right.
okay, well, we did change the laws, but how do we enforce that those laws are being followed?
Right.
So that's like another issue, which is why I'm working with this other group called Elderly Lives Matter, because most of those conservatorships affect the vulnerable population, usually people with disabilities or the elderly.
Mhm.
So with Elderly Lives Matter, we're talking about, federal changes, not
Mhm.
just in the state of California, but we're also talking about how do we make sure that these laws are upheld.
Right.
And one
And
of those programs is like could be court watching.
right. And that was another question that I wanted to ask you, was how did Britney Spears get put into this conservatorship?
It was very manipulative. I mean, they framed her. Like they set her up with the paparazzi. They made her appear to the public in a certain light. But basically, the very initial moves that were made was this woman Lou Taylor, who's the CEO and owner of TriStar Sports and Entertainment, and she approached Britney Spears' parents, and this isn't something that was a one-off situation. She's approached Lindsay Lohan's parents, uh, Courtney
Yeah, on the
Love.
record, on the record. I mean, Lindsay Lohan's father, you guys. Lindsay Lohan's father said that TriStar was trying to put Lindsay Lohan into a conservatorship and he stopped that. So
And
this is a pattern for Lou Taylor.
this strategy, yeah.
Right.
It's her business strategy. I mean, even the court-appointed lawyer for Britney Spears called this a hybrid business model. I call it human trafficking. Essentially, they're approaching people who have assets and saying, "Oh, look at them. They're going to lose their career because they are expressing themselves freely in public." I mean, what did Britney Spears do to seem erratic in public? I mean, she shaved her head. Are we not allowed to
To shave our
shave our
heads.
heads? Or like, is this okay that I have pink hair?
Right.
Or
Right.
um and what she was harassed by paparazzi,
Oh my
thousands.
God. The images that you would send me that were from above, you couldn't even see Britney Spears. She was like this big, and then it was a sea of paparazzi. And I do want to remind, people that are listening, even when it comes to photography, there is a lot of roots in colonization when it comes to photography, even in the ways in which we talk about capturing a photo, shooting an image. These are all, there's a whole article about it and it's really incredible. I'll actually maybe put it into our Reddit thread. But when I learned about that, and then it was around the exact same time that you were sending me images of Britney Spears with paparazzi, it looked like that. It looked just, I can't say the word, but V, and we know what that means here. But it was like just full of V. It felt aggressive and it felt
Was
unjust
aggressive.
and
Yeah,
honestly very, very scary. And
very
so,
scary.
I mean, who and also every single person has a bad day too. And imagine if you're having a bad day under a microscope of media. And just remember that media is all about exploitation. It's its own predatory industry. It's its own predatory platform, and it's all about exploiting everything from good things to bad. And when it comes to Britney Spears specifically, she she went through obviously so much and never got to be herself privately. And I can't honestly, I could never fully empathize. I can sympathize, but I can't fully even understand what it's like to go through your teenage years, your 20s, etc., under a microscope. And then you have these individuals around you that are like vultures almost, and they're preying on the assets that you created, that you built, that you did yourself technically. And now everyone's trying to figure out a way in which to get access to that. And what I noticed about Britney Spears specifically is how, kind she is. And specifically reading her book, which I can't recommend this book enough. But even reading in this book, my mom used to say this saying that, do you mistake my kindness for weakness?
Mhm.
And I think the world does, because we do live in a very predatory, environment in general everywhere. And I think kindness is something that predators definitely exploit and see it as a weakness. And I do think it's a strength, but they can also see it as a weakness. And because Britney Spears was so kind, it opened up actual space for these people to think they had a seat at the table of her success and what she built. And it's terrifying, honestly. And then you see how they built that and got her into a situation where they were able to frame her
Yes.
into someone who wasn't able to take care of her assets, that they could take care of the assets. The
Right,
person who's
right.
the vulture.
A man who had formerly been bankrupt and has a history of being an alcoholic, but
Right.
he is okay to handle Britney Spears's financial aspects, which, by the
Misogyny.
way, were like billions of dollars. Like Britney Spears, there's a reason why in her new song she says she's the economy.
Well, that's another thing, is with tabloids. Tabloids were actually making the most they've ever made during the times in which they were hounding Britney Spears.
Yes, millions of dollars for photographs because of like the tabloids. And like I saw one of those photographers was at the termination rally bragging that they were a photographer when Britney Spears shaved her head. And I heard him. I was so offended that he's literally even saying this, has the audacity to say this during the termination rally after everything that has been validated about the movement. And, me and my friends decided to go up to him and record him for a while and see how he liked it.
Right? I mean, that's I can't even imagine when the first experience that I had with Britney Spears paparazzi, because you have to remember, whenever I would see Britney Spears, for the most part, it was on set. And so being on set, the paparazzi couldn't get through there. It was obviously private property. And the one time, I went out with Jamie and her mom, and it was at a hair salon. And I guess Brittany was showing up. And I remember we went towards her car to help her find parking. Like, I remember her mom being like, she can't find parking. We all went out there to help her. She drives up in this car in the passenger seat, and we're talking to Brittany. And all of a sudden, I just hear these guys screaming, like just screaming on the top of their lungs, Britney, 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 Britney. And I was like, 12 years old. And I remember like freaking out, and I turned around, and it was all these paparazzi dudes, just like all up in everyone's space. And there's no laws that protect celebrities from this, because just a little side note is, if you are a non-public figure, you actually technically have more rights when it comes to this. When you are a public figure, you have less rights. It's really sad, and one day maybe we should actually talk about that. But
Yeah.
public figures are almost supposed to be always available to the public, and that the public should always have access to these public figures. And these paparazzis, these media tabloids, etc., they, in my opinion, they're institutionalized stalking. It is institutionalized stalking. It's when stalking is able to be technically legal.
Right.
Imagine if anyone here in the chat that's not a public figure, and you go out and there's this man following you with a camera
Following you.
everywhere, hounding you, driving fast around you. When you're at a stoplight, they pull up next to you, they're taking photos of you, and also all hours of the day. Then you got helicopters. This guy, this stalker, has helicopters over your backyard and they're
Mhm.
taking photos of you while you're hanging out with your family. Now, if this was happening to a non public figure, that is harassment. That is
Yes.
stalking, and you could technically get an RO against that
Mhm.
individual. But when it comes to celebrities, when it comes to public figures, guess what happens when you go to the police? Oh, that's paparazzi. Oh, you're a public figure. Oh, you can't do anything about that. So these things that we think celebrities have as privileges sometimes are quite the opposite, actually. Sometimes these privileges are not privileges at all, actually. They're um extremely problematic and harmful towards these individuals. I mean, I have a stalker. I had to get an RO against my stalker, for example. And, when I went through that process, I really learned so much about stalking and harassment and the PTSD. So shout out to all the survivors out there of stalking and harassment because it's a very, very real thing. Now, Britney Spears had to deal with that by hundreds of individuals and couldn't get an RO against these people, couldn't get justice. I can't even imagine what that's like.
No. And for them to be writing lies and articles about her just literally like it was so abusive,
Uh-huh.
and the world just had no sympathy.
Mhm.
And I feel like people will read a tabloid and they let it resonate as their like opinion. Like it's very
Scary.
going back and reading everything. I mean,
Like
I felt
Perez
like we had
Hilton.
progressed so much, but then now it's just in like comments on Instagram form. So
Right.
it's like I thought in 2020 I was like, wow, I can't believe back then and we didn't even notice, and I'm so glad that we've progressed enough to like see that this is wrong, but now it's literally just taken a different form, like it's still
Twitter.
here, the
Twitter,
abuse and
because
harassment, yeah.
it's internalized. This is what we talk about also a lot here is like being a cycle breaker. And we don't realize that the things that we don't like about our past sometimes can be internalized and we perpetuate it and we actually recycle these types of behavior. And because we think we're having the agency over these things now, that they're not as problematic, but they are because it's learned behavior from institutions like these tabloids, et cetera, that think that bullying is cool, that
Right.
bullying is something that you can also, you know, for example, for these publications, the validation comes through the funds when they bully someone. But when it comes to individuals now that are bullying these public figures and just people in general, they think the validation is just through the devaluation of another person. Like they think that they're getting validated if they're putting someone down. And honestly, that's
Right.
all rooted in colonialism and colonization, to be quite honest. But it's this cycle that like just keeps happening and happening. And if we don't break it within ourselves, it's going to show up. Even if these institutions aren't doing it, we've learned so much from these institutions that we don't even realize when we are perpetuating these
Yeah.
abusive, predatory, institutionalized ways
Mhm.
of bullying human life, you know?
And we've been perpetuating it the whole time by buying those tabloids or clicking on those links. And now we perpetuate it by writing the comments ourselves or like
Right?
little mini TMZs out there.
Which is scary because you think about public figures in general, and even when it comes to defamation suits. I don't know if anyone knows this, but if you're a public figure, you actually also have less rights when it comes to defamation, which is why these tabloids have been able to do things so freely, is because once you're a public figure, you're almost what Scientology likes to call it, bring in Scientology brewing justice. It's called fair game. And celebrities specifically or public figures can be fair game to these institutions, and they don't care if this human life, this human being is seen as good or bad, as long as they're making money off of them being good or bad. They don't care. They don't care whatsoever. And with Lou Taylor, for example, like you're saying, she actually had an invested interest in painting Britney Spears as someone unstable, bad,
Mhm.
giving into the stigmas around mental health so that
Mhm.
she can get access to her assets.
Yes. She had a financial motivation, and there's even conflicts of interest in how she handled herself as a business manager within the conservatorship. I mean, there are even emails that were leaked about them handpicking a judge that would give them medical rights. Like the whole thing is them knowing how the system works, knowing how the court system works, and using it as a tool to literally traffic somebody.
That's something I want to ask you. So, how much money did Britney Spears' dad get, Lou Taylor, etc., when it came to this conservatorship? Is there any knowledge when it comes to the amount, etc.?
Matt Rosengard recently said in a court filing that the number is in the billions.
What?
He said that overall that there are inconsistencies in the reporting of the accounting, and he said billions with a B. I don't know if it was plural, maybe it's a billion. I mean, I heard from Brian
Billions
Spears
enough.
in a podcast that the perfume business alone was worth 100 billion. So I don't know where the money has gone through because they won't produce the contracts or the documents. Wonder why.
Wait a minute. So Britney Spears was making possibly, obviously, billions of dollars. And what is her net worth now? Is there any type of public information where we can see there's a huge gap, obviously, between what she has been paid and what she is currently worth?
Yeah, it's been reported that she's currently worth $60 million.
That's it?
Yeah. And even her, Brian Spears said in a podcast that the perfume business alone was worth 100 billion. Matt Rosengard had said in a court filing that the conservatorship was dealing with $1 billion or billions of dollars. I'm not sure if it's multiple billions, but it was not millions, billion with a B.
So I have a question because I do want, people to understand this. When it came to Lou Taylor, it wasn't that she was just this manager, obviously, of this entertainment, whatever, entertainment mogul, whatever you want to call it. But she had this connection to this thing called Stonebridge. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, so Stonebridge Investments is a investment firm that she was listed as a co-founder on, and there is evidence of them moving money from Britney Spears's estate into that investment firm. And this is something that BJ had been talking about years
Yeah.
ago and was just confirmed in a court filing by Britney Spears's counsel, that it was in fact true, and that they are, or that they believe it's true. And basically like doing discovery and trying to get access to any business records, but of course TriStar is dodging it because I believe obviously they're guilty.
That's so so what was a clear sign when it came to Stonebridge and their involvement? Is there like some type of documentation that shows there's a moving of funds or they got wealthier during a certain time? Please explain.
Yes. So basically, as I understand it, and we can like go back and even like look at BJ's original videos for it,
For
but
sure.
as I understood it, it was around the time that they were basically trying to gain control of Britney Spears's trust, which by the way, that trust wasn't even supposed to be an asset of the conservatorship. It was a separate trust. And they were trying to move the name of the trust instead, which the trust was like ran by these people. It was like, I forget the name, it's like Bessemer.
Mhm.
But basically they are a company that specializes in handling trusts. And then Lou Taylor and James Spears tried to actually move the trust in Jamie Lynn's name.
Jamie Lynn
And
Spears?
Jamie Lynn Spears,
Oh, I know
who
about
said on
her.
Call Her Daddy that she had no involvement in the conservatorship,
Right.
yet we see her name and signature on a document saying that she understands, in terms of them attempting to move, that like basically they were trying to remove Bessemer as not the like people who are responsible for the trust and
Right.
put Jamie Lynn Spears's name. And it was that time that BJ discovered online, you can kind of look at like basically the investment firm's history, and you can see that like around the same time there was like $600 million that was put into Stonebridge investment firm, and basically
600 million?
$600 million. So everybody at that point, and this was years ago before Britney even spoke out, I believe. And it
Uh-huh.
was basically like, we were like, oh my God, is that Britney's money? Where is Britney's money? Because we knew that she like had been making a lot more, and that 60 million didn't make sense for some of the other reportings of her other business ventures, right? So we were like, oh my God, is that Britney's money? And so BJ would like investigate it, and then Lou Taylor, BJ at the time was working for a prestigious law firm
Right.
in New York, and that's why she's actually an incredible investigator, because of her intelligence, and and her intuition is also incredible. So basically, she was working at this prestigious law firm at the time in New York, and Lou Taylor hires this law firm in an attempt to create a conflict of interest for BJ to not cover her on
Oh.
YouTube. And they specifically asked for her to not talk about the 600 million. And
So wait,
BJ,
so
in
wait,
her
so wait. Let me
integrity,
wait, can I
actually
just clarify
did.
something? So basically,
Yeah.
so when BJ released a video talking about Stonebridge's involvement, alleged involvement, when it came to this 600 million missing for Britney Spears, she was working at a law firm, and Lou Taylor ends up hiring this law firm after probably, allegedly, in my opinion, seeing the BJ video on YouTube
Oh,
as
yeah.
a way to try to block BJ from continuing her coverage when it came to this information.
Yep. She had
Wow.
Lou Taylor has a history of
Wow.
trying to silence Free Britney advocates. She actually sued a different Free Britney activist, um, and tried to
Typical
get
predator.
Britney's estate to cover that lawsuit, even though that lawsuit was just about them talking about Lou Taylor and had nothing to do with Britney Spears, right? But and that's
Mhm.
one of the fees that that's going to go to trial, is like they're still trying to get Britney to pay these fees,
So
and
wait, wait,
it's
wait, wait,
it's
wait. So
it's just
Britney's not even suing her dad. She's not suing anyone. It was her father who's saying that Britney still owes him money?
yes, James Spears and his former lawyers are all wanting more money from the conservatorship, but there is no more conservatorship. So they're not getting any money. And I believe that like they're using this as a way to, like, basically, I believe that like Brittany and her counsel are saying, we're not paying your fees. And because you guys want me to pay your fees, I'm going to prove that I shouldn't have to pay these fees, and by proving conservatorship abuse.
Okay, so that's the thing here. So I know a lot of people on Twitter, and especially when it comes to the ongoing conspiracy um, movements that are
Yeah.
around Britney Spears after Free Britney, a lot of people don't. I think, in my personal opinion, they don't want Britney to be free in a way because they're even, they have so many opinions about every single move that she makes. And if she doesn't do the exact thing that this crowd or this group wants her to do, then it's her being controlled again, etc. And so I saw a lot on Twitter where, oh, Britney hasn't sued this person. That means she's still, controlled, or she hasn't done this. But what we were talking about earlier, something you had a recent epiphany about maybe what exactly is going on here, and I do want you to share that because it's pretty wild.
Yeah. So one thing I will say about her doing is like, what I saw in the courtroom was them desperately trying to depose Britney, and it was denied multiple times. And it was denied on multiple bases of like, you know, Britney shouldn't have to be deposed. She wasn't even allowed like access to a lot of this information. So why should you try to question her? It's like, they call it bullying in court for them to try to harass Britney Spears through the depositions. Britney Spears, in my opinion, it's like there's so much evidence of conservatorship abuse that why should Britney Spears have to sue and basically use
Right.
her resources to sue? And then if she sues, she has to be deposed legally
Right.
by these abusers who literally have their own harassment lawsuits going on. Like
Right.
James Spears is a lawyer right now. But basically, like, there's enough evidence to come out in these conservatorship cases for them to prove conservatorship abuse that I don't think Britney needs to sue. But regardless of what Britney needs, it's about what Britney wants. We fought for Britney's freedom. Britney fought for her own freedom. And Matt Rosengard works for Britney Spears. So,
And she
if
seems to
Britney.
very much like him. And there's a lot of controversy around that as well, because that's why it's really important, for example, to really support and help platforms that are survivors from the entertainment industry. Because when you hear from survivors themselves, like here's one example, obviously this platform, whatever. It's really important to hear it from survivors within the industry, because even me, when I started to speak about Britney Spears conservatorship and I went and protested at TriStar with you, for example, I saw online that I was like a CAA agent, like that I was like planted by CAA. And it was so weird because like I don't like CAA and I have no involvement honestly with CAA. And I could see that this is the problem with misrepresentation. And you taught me something that is so incredible, and I think about it every day, honestly, is controlled opposition. And how powerful controlled opposition can honestly be in when it comes to movements, when it comes to liberation, when it comes to anything, honestly, that's against predatory behavior. They actually will put funding and put effort into creating a controlled opposition so that the opposition that gets highlighted the most or platformed the most makes it all look worse, more fantastical. I would say the whole point is to make it seem unrealistic, because
Yes.
then you got people looking at it and going, well, okay, I don't believe in reptilians. Like, I don't believe in like AI clone swaps or whatever. And so then people just give up on the entire thing. And I actually think it's very predatory and it's very strategic to do something like that. I think the conspiracy around Britney Spears is not only individuals that are conspiring to create this controlled opposition, but then you have people who are giving into the controlled opposition narrative online because they're so invested in Britney, so
Mhm.
invested in the Free Britney movement that happened, that they're getting confused and they're thinking, oh, okay, like there's more to do. And when you think there's more to do, when you've already experienced the 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 public, for example, and press not validating what the fans were seeing. Like, for example, Britney Spears was showing hints and signs on her Instagram and to her fan base before she got freed. And, there was like, I saw that in the documentary where it came to like a yellow shirt or things like that became these symbols for people to kind of maybe communicate with her that something was not right, that something was wrong. And I think once she got freed, there were still people looking for those symbols and thinking that there was still more to do. And then when you got someone like Lou Taylor, or you got these huge moguls, entertainment moguls, that see that people have been hooked onto that pattern, then it's very
Mhm.
easy to create a controlled opposition with those
Mhm.
people and be like, oh, this is a new movement, when really it's just a
Right.
conspiracy.
It is pretty wild from my time in a social movement to actually learn about ways to divide social movements. One thing I found really interesting that was like maybe a more recent revelation is bot farming. And that sometimes it's not, I used to think that like, oh, if somebody is like saying something that maybe has a lot of misinfo in it. Like I was like, oh, are they team con? We call it team
Yeah,
conservatorship, like
so good.
basically the people who are facing, I'm hoping will go to jail, like these people who put Britney Spears into the conservatorship. But basically, they have incentive obviously to sway the public opinion. They are facing, like discovery right now. They like it looks like they're getting caught right now.
Mhm.
Like that's like when I see what's happening in the courtroom, I'm like, yeah, you guys look guilty. Like, and I'm just a girl on the internet. Y'all look super guilty. Like, but like, I'm
No, but you're
not.
court
Britney Spears'
watching. You're court
investigation team
watching.
is literally former FBI. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
Right.
not. Like they know I trust that they know what they're doing. But basically, what I'm trying to say is sometimes, the opposing side will actually pay bots to appear as the public, and they could actually incentivize an innocent person who's just sharing concern on the internet
Mm.
to think that they are validated by the general public, and that the actual public opinion is different than it is, because it's actually like not even expensive. Like if I want to go and buy views on TikTok right now, it's like gonna cost me about a couple dollars, like,
Right.
and it's not like very easy for me to access. But now imagine somebody who is a multi-millionaire with billionaire
Yep.
connections in Hollywood
With
who is
crypto
facing.
dollars, crypto. I mean, this happens to the survivor community as well. These hashtags of, even for like Nick Carter, for example, Carter stands, these hashtags, allegedly, what I've heard through the grapevine is, these hashtags are actually created by these bots. And it's not just, again, the alleged predator buying these bots. It's the institution that is
Mhm,
making money off of that alleged predator so that they can protect their funds. They want to keep
of
making
course.
money off of this alleged predator as much as they can until they can't. And they'll do anything. And with bots, you're right. The bot farming is a real deal. We saw that with the Amber Heard JD case as well, where she brought forward to the courts that this law firm was giving money to these bot firms that were smearing her name and creating, I mean, essentially defamation when it came
Mhm.
to AH. And so, why would TriStar be any different? Why would this situation be any different? Brittany's a survivor. Why would it be any different?
Britney's a survivor, and TriStar is taking the fall. However, there were institutions and corporations that, we don't have access to what those contracts were and how much money Live Nation, Ticketmaster,
That's
Caesars,
another
and
thing.
in Las
Okay, wait.
Vegas residency, like we don't even have access to how much money these other corporations are making, and hopefully that, Brittany and her counsel do gain access, um and that it's not just like, I mean, I would be thrilled for there to be criminal charges against TriStar, but I don't think that TriStar acted alone. And
No,
I
no,
know that the deals that they were making involved multi-billion dollar companies.
right. Well, that's the thing with when it comes to the music industry specifically, you've been there. We've been protesting against these institutions that don't give a flying fuck, honestly, about human life. But when it comes to Britney Spears, Live Nation, these corporations were also making so much money off of the conservatorship, making
Mhm.
so much money off of it. So they would obviously look the other way. Not that they were necessarily orchestrating the conservatorship, but the conservatorship ended up probably being in favor. And so when the conservatorship did happen and they saw the benefits of it, they're not going to like report it or
To
say,
control Britney Spears.
right.
Wonderful. Let's have her rebuild the economy in Las Vegas and put her in a residency and actually, it's been rumored. I could probably find the documents on this, but it's been rumored that Caesars required Britney Spears to be in the conservatorship for her residency. I mean, we're talking about
What?
trafficking here.
Wait. Caesars, you mean the hotel?
It's been rumored that, yeah, that basically for Britney Spears's residency in Las Vegas, that there were business entities in Las Vegas who required Britney Spears. I believe it's Caesars. I can
Yeah,
like go back
of
and
course.
double check everything. I'll just say that it's rumored at
Hmm.
this point, just in case. But that there was a clause in the contract that required Britney Spears to be in the conservatorship. And I'd like to like fact check that, but like from what like from previous research, like I feel confident enough to say it. I'm usually very careful with what I say, so
Hmm.
for me to even say it as a rumor, like
You're
I
like,
mean,
I feel that I feel this strongly,
I
but
feel this strong. I wouldn't It's not
strong.
surprising.
I'm thinking stronger
Like
Britney
it's
Spears song.
basically saying that they have control over her.
Right.
And
Well,
yeah, so
that's that is actually terrifying to think about
terrifying.
because
Mhm.
you know, when you think back and also reading Britney Spears' book, she talks a lot about the fact that, she didn't want to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
She didn't want to be doing these concerts. It's so sad. These individuals literally tried to ruin her passion in life. And that's what predators will do, by the way, is not only do they ABUSE, the survivor, but they also try their hardest to steal their joy in life. The one thing that makes them the happiest, where some of these individuals can say, I can do without a house, I can do without a car as long as I can sing. A lot of artists feel that way, where it's like their passion towards their arts is what helps them feel sane in this world, this insane world, to be quite honest with you. Makes you just feel
Really.
grounded. It makes you feel secure. And when you read Britney Spears' book, you can see that not only were they doing X, Y, and Z, but they were also trying to ruin what she loved the most. And I think about that with like colonialism, capitalism, etc. When it comes to going to other countries, taking their resources, etc. You can see that they're trying to even take away the one thing that makes them feel grounded, which is their land, for example, that connection to their land. And I think in a capitalist society, as artists, for example, the one thing that helps artists feel grounded is this non-tangible entity that is creation, like creativity. Um, and to see predators, prey on that is so sad, because it's not something that you can necessarily see, but you can at least learn it from a survivor or hear it from someone, what it feels like to have that one true passion of yours, that one thing that makes you feel, I don't know, real almost in this
Mhm.
world. To have that tainted
Yeah.
is just disgusting, honestly.
I've always
It's
felt that way about art, and like art shapes culture, and
Yeah,
if we're having these predators come in and control the culture, then we're in a predatory culture. And that's
totally.
what we're doing right now, and that's why I initially was even drawn to this case, because what we need artists to share their true authentic experiences so we can live in a true authentic culture,
Right. And
and not one that's just driven by control and profits.
right. Capitalism. A
Capitalism.
predator's main love. A
It's
predator's
like
main
very
love.
it's not even like real capitalism.
Predatory capitalism.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Noam Chomsky calls it that, and I always forget that. I'm like, oh yeah, because I mean, I think, in my opinion, capitalism is predatory in general, but then there's even a next
Right.
layer to it that is just
We're just like a
predatory.
next level even. Like it's
Totally.
like yeah, it's very scary. And it, like I will say, just going back to kind
Yes.
of the importance of Britney Spears and her celebrity, and how that, basically it's almost like using our toxic obsessions, like I believe that people are like, oh, why are you obsessed with this? Like, you're like, it's toxic to be so
Fandom.
focused on celebrity, but it's like, well, when we were highlighting other conservatorship cases, the press like wouldn't pick it up. Like,
That's one thing. That's something I wanted to ask you. Was the press around in the beginning of the Free Britney movement?
Free Britney LA worked really hard to send press releases out and get the press involved. And for a while, we were just called conspiracy theorists.
And
James
fans?
Spears sent his lawyer on a press tour to go on Good Morning America and all these mainstream outlets, saying Britney Spears needs the conservatorship. No one's ever gotten out of a conservatorship, and that was kind of like the main like public opinion in the media until Framing Britney Spears came out, the New York Times Hulu
Right.
documentary,
Right.
and that kind of, Britney Spears doesn't like the documentaries, understandable.
Totally.
I try to respect her as much as possible. I'm hoping the things I bring up don't create like, any triggers for her. I have so much respect for her and love her so much as a person.
Mhm.
But so she didn't actually like those documentaries, but I will say, as an advocate, it did change the tone for people to start taking us more seriously.
Right.
And it
Sadly.
was because of us being taken more seriously that, we did get more press, and that we were able to, work with Disability Voices United, and the legislation got
And
passed.
change the world, honestly.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. And it was a social media movement. So it was like, for me, I was like, wow, like we did this by like just talking to each other online, and it
Right.
was like we actually did, like I mean, it was so empowering to realize that we actually can change the world. And when I saw you
Yes.
protesting, I was like, Alexa's going to change the world. Like, and I'm like, I stand by that. Like, I know you're going to pass legislation too. Like, that's why I like want to like try like connect you as much as possible to like Free Bernie LA and stuff, because
You're the
they've done it
best.
before, and like we have so much work to do,
Yes, we
but
do.
it's like I still try to celebrate the small wins along the way. And
Yeah,
it's
the small
because of
wins.
people like you, like that, and the community like this, that we actually really can create change. And
Yeah.
I don't think I really believed that until I was a part of the Free Birdie movement.
Wow. That's interesting because even for me, when I got to meet all the different individuals that were part of the Free Britney movement at the TriStar, protests, and then also at the Free Britney hangout that we had on the Free Britney Day, etc.
Goodness,
Um,
yes.
just hearing how it started so small,
Hmm.
and it was just their love for this, pop star, this individual that they didn't even know, and it gave me hope. People are going to say, "Oh, these fans, like they don't even know this person," but think about
Crazy
it.
man.
Think about it. Most social change is about us collectively having to care about people we don't know.
Yep.
It's about us caring about people we don't know because for the sake of humanity.
Hmm.
And I was reading this book currently. God, I'm forgetting the book that I'm listening to right now. But he said that like colonialism, for example, is these borders against strangers. Like it's to get us
Hmm.
to not feel for those that we don't personally know. And the more that we can break down that barrier, because I think that's very predatory. Like predators want us to be divided always. And I think this,
Isolation.
right?
Yep.
Like this fear around strangers, this fear around people we don't know is actually what's keeping us back from collective liberation. And the
Hmm.
more that we come together and we fight for people we don't know and we stand up for people we don't know, it benefits us. Because if someone is unsafe while we're feeling safe, are we really technically safe? I don't think
Right.
so.
No.
I,
Because
I
they
don't think so.
because we are connected. I mean, I know that could be like more of
Yes.
like it's actually not even, it's like literally just like a actual like organism,
Yeah,
like, I
we're
mean, even
actually
with like
connected.
COVID, I realized how connected we are. Like if you walk by somebody, you could like affect their health with that type
Totally.
of like transfer of like
A
micro
smile.
cells or like whatever, like, and it
Smile.
just made me realize like how much we actually do affect each other. And I know that's
Mhm.
like a negative example, but it's an example, that we can all, I think, understand at this point, where it's
Yes.
like, wow, if we're walking by each other and we can actually like change like each other's like molecular
Structure?
structure, like
Yeah.
because of just me breathing near you, like, I mean, and we're seeing it in like this negative way, but that's
Right.
translates in a positive way as well. And that's why even with the misinformation and concerns in the movement,
Yes.
it's really important for me. And I talk about this a lot, like on my like Instagram account.
Yeah.
It's basically like to respect each other and to love each other in the movement,
Simple.
even if we have different perspectives and different fears and different concerns. Because, like, I can't tell, like, who's like a Team Con plant and who's just like an innocent person with a pure
Right.
heart who doesn't like, maybe. And I'm not trying to say that people like are like that I know everything, you know what I mean, about like the case, but some things are just like actually misinfo where I'm like, I could debunk this actually with like a court document, you know what I mean? And I don't think the people who are concerned about, that narrative are I don't think it serves us to
Be
isolate them.
divided. Well, no, that's something that we were talking about. The main focus when it came to all those CIA leaks, when it came to how to destroy a movement. And one of
Yes.
the main ways to do that is internally. So the
Yes.
best way to destroy a movement is internally, and they will put controlled opposition sometimes and and pay them to infiltrate these movements and basically be a double agent in a sense where they pretend, that they're for this movement, but actually they're for the opposition. And that happens a lot. And I'm telling you, the first sign of a predator is division. Like
Yeah.
the second you are getting divided, that is the sign of a predator because a predator needs its prey to be isolated. It doesn't
Mhm.
do well with herds. Like if you look even online in the animal kingdom, what intimidates an actual predator in the wild is a herd. It's a little bit
Right.
harder. And then they try to get one of the animals to be isolated away from the herd to get them. And so
Exactly.
when it comes to these movements, whenever we're seeing division happening, I also want to encourage other people out there. The division that starts to incline during movements like this are actually a good sign because it means that there is something about to change. And so the opposition wants to make sure that doesn't happen. And you'll
And
start
they're
to see
threatened by
division
it.
happen. Like, I do think, I mean, that happened even with predators. I mean, it was the same
Mhm.
thing. Like, there was somebody who was like, I know how to get in here. And it's like, you get in the middle of it and then try to divide everybody. And then the social change doesn't happen. I mean, what is it saying? Divide and conquer?
Literally. Yes.
Literally. It's like a predator's like slow, like how Power to
Motto.
Survivors is predators. Divide and conquer is the slogan for a predator. It really is. And it's sad to see that happening within the Britney movement because there's now a chance and a time for us to hold these institutions accountable that were a
Mhm.
part of this abusive conservatorship. And instead, people are arguing about if she's a clone or, if she's this, if she's that. Like, let's discuss that later. There are things that are actually currently happening
Or
right
if
now.
like, if she like not to feed
Yeah.
anything, but like what I'm trying to say, well, I have like multiple feelings about that specific theory because like I really get turned off by anything that dehumanizes
Yes.
Britney Spears, considering that
Agreed.
it was like a main issue that
Agreed.
got her into the conservatorship. But
Agreed.
you know, regardless, like there is an overarching alignment between the advocates, no matter what you
Right.
believe. The overarching mission is that we want Britney Spears free. We
Right.
want her, and we want accountability against the abusers. Now we
Right.
have evidence of these abusers, and there's an open court investigation happening right now.
Uh-huh.
So, like, you know, anything that distracts us from that, I'm weary of.
Right.
If it leads people to focus on the consequences, you know, a lot of people are worried about these other people who had minor roles. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying that we should ignore the people who had minor roles in the conservatorship, but
Right.
I am really focused on the people who constructed this and who have attempted and have also succeeded in putting many people in conservatorships. You know, Lou Taylor, you know, is one person, but the lawyers, I mean, Britney Spears' court-appointed
Lawyers,
lawyers
let's get
cannot
the
enforce that
lawyers
she had.
emotes.
What'd
Lawyers
you say?
emotes. I'm saying for the chat to get the lawyer emotes in here because
Yeah, yeah, get
honestly,
those lawyer emojis going
they're so
because
bad.
Sam Ingham was involved in 600 conservatorships.
Wait, what? What?
Yeah, these people are
Wait,
there.
wait, is
It's
that the
a
person who was represented by Brian Friedman?
Wait, Sam Ingham was represented by Brian
There
Friedman?
was someone who was represented by Brian Friedman. Maybe the chat will know. It was like someone, I think, by the name of Sam.
Well, it
Sam.
could be. There's a lot of Sams in Britney's case. There's a Sam Lefty.
Wait, I think
There's
it was Sam
her
Lefty. It was
Sam
Sam
Lefty could have been.
Lefty. That's who it was.
Yeah, there is a lot of
Yes.
Sams in Britney's case, especially early on. We were
Weird.
like, oh my God, so many Sams. I think you've said that before about like so many Bryans
So
or
many
like something
Bryans,
like that. Or like
Michaels. There's like,
Michaels. Yeah,
there's
you
just,
said that about Michaels. I was on that live.
yeah,
Yeah, we had a lot of Sams initially. Sam Ingham was the court appointed lawyer. So
got it.
he was Britney Spears' lawyer, but she really wanted to have her own lawyer.
So sad that she didn't even
Yeah.
know. It says it in the book that she didn't even, they told her that she wasn't able to get her own attorney and then she realized she could go get her own attorney that whole time.
And she actually had an attorney dress up like a plumber. She signed a paper to hire him as her own attorney, and then he was
Unreal.
thrown out of the court.
Right.
Like that's why I'm like, it's one
Right.
thing, it's good for us to pass these bills, but there are legal processes
Right.
that were not legal. Like it
Right.
doesn't make sense actually. So it's like that's why we do need eyes on the court and to not be so divided and to accept that maybe we don't have all of the answers. So we need to listen to each other. Like my eyes are
Yes.
in the court. I promise I'm not like oblivious to like all of the, you know, information that comes out online. I'm literally read it every day. You know, like it's okay if people disagree with me, but I promise that I am there with my eyes open and that I question her lawyer, that I report on, you know, what happens in the courtroom on my
Mhm.
page. Like we're all have a role in this movement. You know, it's not
Right. Right.
one person that makes a difference. It's all of us together.
Right. And it's not about, most importantly, like to remind people is we don't want to pray for predators. We don't want to do the praying. You know what
Right.
I mean? We don't want to give more meat to the scavengers either. And so there's this whole, like, literally in the animal kingdom, if you actually study the animal kingdom with predators, you actually understand what's going on. And it's really important for us not to be divided, for us to actually work collectively, because I don't think liberation and justice fully happens without collectivity. Like, we
I
need
agree.
community to actually create change. And anytime we're getting divided, we can disagree and we can go, okay, well, I think it's a little bit like this. That's
Right.
okay. But it's when we dehumanize one another
Mhm.
and when we bully one another and when we make each other
Harass
feel less
and
than.
lie, like, yeah.
Yes. That's when I think it becomes problematic. So wait, when is the next hearing? What are we looking forward to? What's happening in the
So
future?
the next hearing is coming up. It's on January 5th is the next hearing.
Okay, January 5th.
So coming up soon, I will be
Okay.
there.
I'm going to come with you.
Oh my god,
Let's
yay!
join.
I would love for you to come with
I
me.
want to go.
I encourage people to come. I think it's important. I honestly, the wild part is that like you do affect the lawyers in that room,
Totally.
and like I want to affect them. I want Brittany to know that like we are in support of her. I want the judges to know that we are watching.
Yeah.
I want James Pierce's lawyer to know that we do not like him and that we will not stand for his harassment. And I want him to shake a little bit in court. Like I
Right.
want them to mess up. And they do. They do it on their own. They don't even like need it, honestly. They're so
Hmm.
like it's so obvious what they're doing. My issue is just that like the probate court system, like the judges, it's like we need pressure, you know what I mean? But also at the
100%.
same time I want to make sure that like it's something Britney Spears is comfortable with. How could I know? I
Of
don't
course.
know Brittany personally, of
Right.
course. So I'm just doing my best to navigate and hope that like I know that it's important on such a bigger scale than just Britney Spears, but
Right.
obviously, this she is the survivor who changed the world for the better
She
with
did.
her truth and her story and her voice. And so it's
Did.
like it's just really important to respect her, obviously. So sometimes I just like, whatever. I like worry about like the press kind of sucks. You know what
Yeah,
I
the
mean? Like
press
we'll try
does
and get
suck.
press and like they don't even cover it well. You know
No,
what I
they
mean? So it's
don't.
like, does Brittany even like that at this point? Like I feel like it's coming out in court anyway.
Right.
So it's like I'm just not sure about that. So
Right.
what I do is I just show up and after go on my Instagram and I just tell people what happened, and then bigger accounts will like reshare it and get the word out there. And
It's all about
you've encouraged
court
me to
watching
do
is
YouTube.
advocacy work. You are court watching. And that is advocacy work in itself. There is a whole lineage of court watchers. And it's very important that we keep an eye on our legal system because honestly, that is where predators are going to prey the most is
Yeah,
in there because that's where change systemically really
yeah,
systemically stems from.
it
Um,
is. It's
you
true.
know? So it's like, it's important for us. It's our tax dollars. We have every right to watch that. That's why we're allowed to. That is why court documents are available to the public. It is
Mhm.
because it is a community here. We all have to look out for each other. And the more that we look out for each other, the more we're going to scare the bad guys because they actually prey also on our ignorance
Yeah,
and our ways in which we don't look out for one another. And so what you're doing is admirable. I can't speak for Britney Spears, but if as a survivor, if I had someone like you looking and court watching for my case, I would be so grateful for you as a human being because that's actually very rare that you have allies like that as survivors out there. So don't have ever any shame about that because that is very admirable. And you've
thank
inspired me to really start doing the court watching thing with you. And then,
you.
it's,
I'm
it's,
so
it's,
glad because I realize it's so important. Like
it
I went into
is.
this movement like wanting to make change in the music industry. I didn't know I was going to learn about the legal system, but of course
Right.
it was just a natural step because that's where justice is served. That's how they're even with this is probate law, this is
Right.
conservatorship law, but like even
Right.
what you've taught me about with NDAs
Yes.
and contracts, like
Yes.
that's all also legal,
Right.
more private, so it's harder to
Track. That's why
gloss
they want
over.
those. That's why it's like when it's public, we better be court watching because
Yeah.
that's why they want this shit private all the time with arbitration, etc. They don't want us knowing about these things. They don't
No,
want
and
us
it's
knowing.
it's it's an entire trafficking ring, in my
Hmm.
opinion. Like
Hmm.
the court system, like I said, with Sam Ingham having 600 conservators, like these lawyers do
Right.
this and they get paid like millions of dollars for it. There's financial reward for them.
Right.
Conservators can take over your assets and sell them out from under you and take a percentage themselves. Like it's financially motivating. That's why it's
Right.
like so easy for it attracts so many predators.
Right. Because there's something to exploit and there is
Yeah.
something to eat. I was
Yes.
telling that to a survivor the other day. I was like, the difference between survivors and predators here when it comes to eat predators is that predators eat everything. They eat everything. Survivors are just wanting to maybe eat them in the sense where,
Yeah,
you know,
because they just want to stop.
stop
They want to
this.
live. Like we
Correct.
just want our freedom and
Mm.
our
Liberation.
rights.
Yeah.
And they're
Be able to use our
imposing
voices.
on us for their own selfish
Agreed.
greed and power. And
Agreed.
it's why like like there's so much to get into even just
I know.
within that.
No, this is why this episode is really important to first like introduce obviously
Right.
you, because I wanted to let the community know who like you are and what got you into this, because I did the same thing with Jacob. And then like the next week we went obviously to the courthouse and started getting into like
Cool.
even more documents. But I think it's important to introduce and give the background to everything, because I know there's some people here that might not have read Britney Spears' book and doesn't really know necessarily the ins and out of like the Free
Mhm.
Britney movement now to the Justice for Britney movement. And like, you know, it is, there's a lot of moving pieces in this, to be quite honest, and a lot of confusion
So
too.
many. So much
So,
confusion. And I
so
wish
much.
I could do a better job, but it's like it is so
No.
like that's why I just want us all to be like more connected collectively. Like I
Yes.
will say for the Free Britney movement, like basically when the second Hulu documentary came out, like there was a black box whistleblower. So black box was like Britney Spears' security that was hired and literally formed by the conservatorship. Like when I
To
say that,
spy
I
on
mean
her.
like, yeah, I mean, yes, there's like an
Legally.
entire document we could read about how they spied on her.
I
Very
want to know
crazy.
this actually. Can we do that the next
Yeah.
sit down we have? I want to know more about that.
Yes, and so that's like what a lot of people were like, "Oh, why didn't they sue for surveillance?" And for a while,
Right.
like I was like, I don't know, like that is weird. Like because like you start reading these things and you're like, oh my god, like that is weird. But then it's like I realized, like I actually realized it when she said it in her book. She said I picked up the phone and I called the police on my father for conservatorship abuse, and that's when it like hit me. And I know that sounds so obvious, but I was like, she's going for conservatorship abuse charges. Like
That'd
and
be so
and the
sick.
problem with going for surveillance charges could be that
Yeah.
she was considered a dependent adult
Right.
in the conservatorship, so they could argue that it was for her safety. But if we're arguing that the conservatorship was the wrong type of conservatorship from the beginning, that it was an abusive conservatorship for multiple reasons, then the surveillance just becomes evidence for
Right.
conservatorship abuse. And conservatorship abuse isn't going to just limit to Black Box, TriStar, and James Spears, but
Right.
it could also be inclusive of the entire probate court system in the state of California. And something I thought what that was interesting in Britney's book was that
Oh.
she said, "How could California do this to me?" Which shows me that Britney Spears isn't just thinking about scapegoating James Spears. She's not just thinking about scapegoating TriStar. She's thinking about the state of California and their role in the conservatorship abuse.
Never underestimate a survivor.
Never underestimate a survivor. Definitely don't
Never underestimate.
underestimate Britney Spears,
Right? Yeah,
like
no, never
legend.
underestimate a survivor. I think that's like an amazing place to actually leave off for today, because honestly, that is so true. In the sense where, we think that, these individuals, survivors specifically, are thinking here, like we always think small, but it's like maybe survivors actually thinking big.
Yeah.
And we need to be patient and see what they're wanting to do, what is justice for them specifically,
Mhm.
and to allow them to choose what that is. But I think actually the next time we sit down, which by the way, is that actually going to be after the 5th? Wait. Yeah,
What
it is.
is
Wait, it
it'll
will.
be
Wait, the 5th.
okay. I
Wait,
can tell
no,
you
maybe it's
what up.
not actually. It would be, I think, the 3rd. And then I'll go with
Oh yeah, the
you.
third, so it'll be right before. So
Right.
I could kind of
At,
cover then
yes.
what we're looking forward to because I have a bunch of papers here that's about her actual like case that I wanted to get
Okay.
into, but like I agree it makes sense to just kind of like give more just like context
Context.
on like the actual movement and this is
Agreed.
I'm so like a lot of people ask me, "Oh, can you cover things like as if I like for the general public, and I'm like,
Right.
"Oh god," because I am so in the weeds, like, I am, like,
You're like, I'm
every
already
little
in here.
detail, like, so it's like, I'm like, "Oh, you want me to, like, generalize?" Like, there's literally so many I don't know, like, so much
There's
detail,
so
so it's, like, a little
much.
harder for
For
me, like,
sure.
but
For
so that's
sure.
why I was like, "Oh, it's helpful if people ask me questions because then I'm like, okay, I could answer this
Right.
question." But sometimes when I'm just like talking about it, I'm like getting into the nitty gritty.
No, I totally get it. I think that's why it's important to like give the context. We're gonna go like a little bit back in time. I want to like hear about this
Yeah, that makes
surveillance
sense.
because that's very scary, and especially since TriStar were right. Am I getting this wrong? Was it backed by TriStar?
TriStar, yes, TriStar are the ones who allegedly it was Robin Greenhill's idea to mirror Britney Spears' phone, and monitor not only her conversations with her family but also with her lawyer, which is that is illegal. Even with her in a conservatorship, they could argue possibly that she's a dependent adult. We are surveilling her, like she doesn't actually have like the
Whatever, dude.
rights to her
Whatever.
privacy because we own her name. But
This is so
she
stupid.
always was allowed to have privacy with her lawyer, right? But they also
Right.
put a listening device in her personal bedroom, like really just like abusive, like things, where it's really scary. And also they
No,
were
that's
like
terrifying.
keeping track of like people's locations. Like there's a lot to get into,
Okay.
and the ways that they were keeping track was also
Right.
like something that only a police officer should have access
Well, they
to. So
were
it's like they're
hunting.
definitely doing illegal things to even have
Right.
that information.
That's
So
hunting
yeah.
though. That's hunting of a predator because you're watching where they're going and making sure that they don't go in the direction that keeps them out of sight. You know what
Yeah,
I
they
mean?
would if any
It's hunting.
Brittany had anyone in her like life or around her that
Right.
they
Because they're
were
hunting.
suspicious of, they were
Hmm.
also surveilling their location, their GPS location. How? We don't know. They shouldn't have been able to legally.
Okay, well, let's get
And that
into that. Okay, I want to
yeah,
let's get into that in January. Because that is just honestly wild. And I think, can't even imagine how many different individuals are in these abusive conservatorships being spied in their own ways. And so I think it's really important also in a general sense to spread this awareness and realize how serious of an issue this actually is. Melanie, you're amazing.
I
You are
love
one of
you.
my best friends. Like, thank you so much for
Amazing.
every single thing that you do. You are such an inspiration. It is such an honor to be able to platform you here and share your wisdom and
Give us your
knowledge with this
plugs.
community. Oh, and plugs. That's what I was going to get at. Please, okay, what we want YouTube because Melanie, by the way, just started a YouTube channel called Bubblegum Bite. And it's about her court watching and things that she found out about when it comes to Jamie Spears' lawyer, which I highly recommend that video to watch. So let's put the plugs in. I think Quiet just put them in the chat. So please follow, subscribe, and watch her videos because she's so amazing.
Thank
And I can't
you.
praise you enough.
What's your Instagram also?
Oh yeah, what's your Instagram?
My Instagram is Melanie Veronica. The O is a 0. So it's MELANIEVER 0NICA. And my
Amazing,
my highlight reel on my Instagram has all of my court reportings for like over like 2 years or
amazing.
something. So if you guys, I mean, it's a lot of information, and I'm gonna consolidate it and put it on the YouTube. But that is where I've done most of my court reporting until I've been inspired by Alexa and by That Surprise Witness to do a YouTube. So I'm thank you so much for having me and like kind
Thank
of like
you.
bringing me into YouTube Live so
Thank
I can
you.
report more. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Melanie. You're the best. Obviously, I'll talk to you when I get home. Actually, I'll text you in a few. But thank you so much for being here. And let's give a bunch of hearts for Melanie, and a bunch of megaphones to amplify her voice and her advocacy work. And thank you so much. And I'll speak to you later, and we'll see you January 3rd.
Perfect. I'll be here.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I love you guys. Justice for Britney. I love you, Britney Spears.
Justice for
And I love you,
Britney.
Alexa. Talk to you
Love you,
later.
Melanie. Bye.
Bye.
How amazing is Melanie? She's so informative. And that was literally just the introduction, honestly, to all of this. Like, her, Jacob, I literally will just like sit and be like, wait, what? There's so many layers to this. And that's why it's so important for us when it comes to allies and survivors to keep an eye on these things, because we can learn a lot. And the more that we learn, the more that we can unlearn, and the more that we can actually spread awareness when it comes to these very, very, very important issues that are constantly prevailing. And so thank you so much for everyone who has been here today. And tomorrow we got the sign making day when it comes to base nectar. We're going to do the action steps together. And make signs together. And it's going to be a total community day, just hanging out with one another, making the signs and actually doing the action steps, because it's super important, because Base Nectar is playing in, I guess, like a week from now. So let's really get this going and spread the action steps with one another. I'll be posting them on the ePredators Instagram page. And so let's share it. Let's get other people. Here it is. Here it is. It's going to be in New York. It is on December 30th. We need everybody, all hands on deck when it comes to these action steps. So let's do it together. We're better together. That's honestly really the main takeaway from today, is how important it is for us to be a community, a collective when it comes to social change and looking out for one another. And so thank you all so much. You guys are the best. I will see you tomorrow for ePredators Daily. We have 2 survivors of the week. And so I'll be reading their stories tomorrow as well. And oh, one more thing also, Sia in the community. Sia, are you still in here? I hope Sia is still in here. Sia is hosting a Christmas holiday party for ePredators. So if there are any survivors out there that don't necessarily have anything that they're doing, they don't have a place to go, families far away, whatever the case is, Sia actually came up with the idea to host a survivor holiday party, and Sia is going to be putting together games and activities, etc. And I think that is so beautiful. And so
it'll be in the Discord, right?
Yeah, it will be in the Discord. It will be in the Discord, and then I'll post it also on the ePredators Instagram. I'll post it in the YouTube community. But Sia is so here. Sia, can you please shout out the Christmas dinner party? Yes, Sia, I was just doing that. I literally just see Sia saying that. I was already shouting out. Yes, Sia, I'm already doing it currently. I'm a little bit actually ahead of you in the chat. But yes, so Sia's going to be hosting that. So this is so wonderful. This is what the community is all about. I'll be joining you guys as well for a little bit during that holiday party, and we'll share all of the deets. Sia, you're amazing. This is what this community is all about. And so yeah, so more details tomorrow, and have a beautiful rest of your evening, and you guys rock. And thanks again to Melanie. You're such a good friend. Okay, bye everyone.